Life was good for Steve. He had a beautiful house in the most perfect little corner of the land. There was a bubbling stream, majestic mountain range, and a lush forest. With his beautiful home, his favorite hammock outside in his yard, and his trusted llama companion, what more could he want? Every day, he got to wake up and enjoy his life. There was one rule, though. Don't go in the cave. But when everything else was so perfect, why would he ever need to do that? Not to say everything was always easy. Steve had many chores to do in order to take care of himself and the land. Every day he would go outside and work the garden, harvest the fruits and vegetables, water the plants, and he would take the food he'd grown and gathered and make lunch for himself. And he would think about the cave. Sometimes, after lunch, he'd take his pet llama out for a walk to stretch her muscles, gather firewood, get some water, enjoy the fresh air. And he'd take the opportunity just to look at the cave. One of his favorite parts of his day was preparing for dinner. He'd settle into his favorite spot at the river, check to see which bugs were crawling around, get his fishing pole situated, and fish for his dinner. He did this, all while imagining what was inside the cave. After dinner, if the weather was nice, he'd go outside and look up at the stars and ponder the mysteries of life. What was in that cave? Today was the day. Steve had been thinking about that cave every day for a very long time. It was finally time to go see what the fuss was all about. Surely it wouldn't be that big of a deal just to go take a peek inside. Steve prepared himself for his journey. He got his favorite pickaxe out and headed off in the direction of the cave. Nothing was going to stop him. Okay, maybe he'd wait until it stopped raining. Enough waiting. Today was the day. He set off in the direction of the cave and soon came upon a giant sign that read, "Don't go in the cave." It's probably not that big of a deal, Steve thought. He kept going. After a few minutes of walking, he came to yet another sign saying, "No, seriously, don't go in the cave." Steve would not be stopped. After many more signs that frankly we don't have time to read right now, he finally made it to the entrance of the cave. He hesitated for a moment, and then, before he could talk himself out of it, he took one step inside to take a look around. Well, that was anticlimactic. In fact, this cave didn't seem so bad after all. So Steve kept going. Sure, it was dark, slimy, and a little bit smelly, but after a while, Steve got used to it. Within no time, he was running around the cave, exploring all the tunnels and rooms that he could find. But this adventure was not without peril. At one point, he came across a vast chasm that was deeper than his eyes could see. Steve was forced to find inner strength and courage to traverse the abyss. He finally mustered up the strength to leap across, and he barely made it. And that's nothing compared to his epic battle with a monstrous, menacing cave spider. After many hours of battling, he was exhausted, but he eventually vanquished his foe. Then he felt something drawing him deeper into the cave. After some more exploration, he rounded the corner and came upon an intriguing room. And in the middle of the room was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. Steve didn't know what it was, but that didn't stop him from walking closer to pick it up. Why would anyone not want him to have this beautiful diamond? What could be the harm? Surely this was it. This is what he was destined to possess. Well, time time to go home. If only it were that simple. When Steve walked out of the cave, he could feel that something had changed in his world. What if someone put those signs up for a reason? What if he really wasn't supposed to go inside the cave? What if he wasn't supposed to take the diamond? He rushed home to make sure everything was okay. Spoiler alert, everything was not okay. His home had been destroyed. There was nothing left except for a map laying on the ground that seemed to be directing him eastward. But it would not be an easy journey. He had never traveled very far from his home before, and the map seemed to show miles of treacherous travel leading to a daunting mountain range. However, at the edge of the map, there appeared to be a city. Maybe, just maybe, he would find a home there. It was a long journey just to get to the mountains, but little did Steve know he was about to face his hardest challenge yet. As he walked closer to the massive mountain range, he saw that the only way through appeared to be a mysterious cave opening. Inside the tunnel was an old, rickety-looking wooden bridge over a river of lava. He didn't know where it would lead him or what danger might be lurking on the other side. Surely, there had to be another way across the mountains. It looked like he had three options. He could try and go north around the mountain range, south around the mountain range, or try and climb over the mountains. Should Steve go north, south, or over? North. Good choice. He started walking north, keeping the mountains on his right side. Surely the mountain range couldn't be that long. Spoiler alert, it was. After many days of travel, Steve noticed it was getting colder. In fact, his legs were starting to get stiff, and all his water had frozen. He didn't know how much longer he could go on like this. Wait, was that a polar bear off in the distance? And was it running towards him? The strain of trying to evade the bear was too much, and he finally collapsed from exhaustion. Should Steve go south or over? South. Good choice. He started walking south, keeping the mountains on his left side. Surely the mountain range couldn't be that long. Spoiler alert, it was. After many days of travel, Steve noticed it was getting hotter. He was having a hard time walking without any fresh water. He didn't know how much longer he could go on like this. He started to feel dizzy and he finally passed out from heat exhaustion. Should Steve go over? Over. Good choice. He approached the mountain range looking for a good place to start his ascent. Surely the mountain range couldn't be that high. Spoiler alert, it was. After trying to climb up the mountain over and over and over and over and over, well, you get the idea. He finally collapsed from exhaustion. Steve had been so sure he could find his own way to the other side of the mountains, but frankly, he was tired. He was out of food, out of water, and he smelled like a dirty sock. After trying all the other options, it appeared Steve was left with just one choice: to cross the bridge. What would he find as he walked? Would the bridge even reach all the way to the other side? Was it going to collapse under his weight, throwing him into the fiery pit of lava? Was a horrific spider waiting somewhere along the way to attack him? But the longer he thought about it, he realized that someone must have put the bridge here for a reason. Surely, it wasn't just a false hope. There was only one way to find out. At first, his steps were cautious and slow. But the farther he walked, the more confident they became. Finally, after following the winding bridge through the tunnel, he saw it. The end! Steve breathed a long sigh of relief when he realized this leg of his journey was finally over. He walked out of the mountain on the other side. He was that much closer to his destination. Steve made it across the bridge in one piece, mostly. But he was exhausted and not sure how much longer he could go on. And now that he crossed the bridge, he wasn't sure where it was he was even going. Just when Steve was about to lose hope, something caught his eye. Was that a waterfall? It was beautiful. He immediately ran over and jumped into the water to cool off and get himself cleaned up. It felt so refreshing. From the water he saw there was a campfire on the shore with food waiting for him to cook. The food restored his health. This place was just what he needed to gather his strength. Steve could sense his journey was almost finished. But it was getting dark and Steve knew he needed a night of rest before he could set off in search of his new home. Things were looking up. Thanks to the oasis, he had food in his stomach, water in his canteen, and he no longer smelled like a dirty sock. As he walked through the valley, he couldn't help but remember the long road he'd been on. He'd encountered many obstacles, and there were times he wasn't even sure if he'd ever make it this far. If it wasn't for the map, the bridge, and the oasis, he definitely wouldn't have. Surely everything he'd gone through wouldn't be for nothing. Today could be the day he'd finally reach his new home. Then, as Steve turned the corner, a beautiful city suddenly came into view. This is where his journey had been leading him all along. This was it. He was finally home. Well, sort of. Turns out, finding your house in a big city is actually a lot harder than he thought it would be. Steve went from house to house looking for his home, but none of them seemed quite right. He even asked some of the other villagers if they knew of a place where he could stay. But no such luck. After searching what seemed like the entire city, he finally stumbled upon a structure that seemed quite familiar. This had to be it. There was even a sign out the front that clearly said, Steve. His long journey had led to this moment. He was finally home. Life was good for Steve. He had his beautiful house again, but now he was able to share it with an entire community. Every day, he got to wake up and enjoy his life. It wasn't always easy, but now he had friends to do life with. Life was good for Steve. And in a lot of ways, even better than he could have imagined.